The clock is ticking. After squaring off in their first and possibly only debate, there's less than 2 months until Election Day. The Harris and Trump campaigns are running out of time to win over critical undecided voters in key battleground states. Now we're learning new details about how the Harris campaign views the race post-debate. CNN senior White House correspondent MJ Lee is with us covering the latest from the Harris campaign. MJ, talk to us about their strategy now.
Well, Boris, the Harris team is certainly feeling really good about last night. They felt good about the vice president's performance. They were pleased to see Donald Trump taking the bait from her at multiple moments. But I think today back in Wilmington, according to aides that I have spoken to, the vibe is very much it's back to work. Even as the campaign is trying to strategize over how to maximize and capitalize on the momentum that they felt like they had last night, there is no sense from the campaign right now that one debate ended up changing fundamentally the trajectory of this race. The assumption from here until Election Day is that this is going to be an incredibly close race and that the really hard work for them is to come still in the coming weeks. As one senior campaign aide put it, it'll be incredibly close. We cannot take our foot off the gas even when the moment feels really good. That, of course, again, is a reference to last night. In other words, I think, Boris, there's no sense right now in the Harris campaign that this race is suddenly a 45-55 race, that they still see this as a very close 50-50 race. And remember, this is a team that certainly remembers really well that the 2020 election ended up being decided in a number of battleground states by margins of tens of thousands of votes. Now, obviously, this is why we're going to be seeing the campaign continue to be focused very much on a number of battleground states. If you even look at the places that Vice President Harris and Governor Tim Walz are going to be traveling to in the coming days, Harris is going to North Carolina and Pennsylvania in the next couple of days. Tim Walz will be going to Michigan and Wisconsin. That just tells you everything that you need to know about where the campaign continues to focus its attention. Now, one other thing coming out of last night is, of course, this Taylor Swift endorsement. We are told that the bracelets, the friendship bracelets that the campaign started selling quickly last night, they actually sold out. They were $20 a pop, but if you go on the store website for the campaign, it says that they are sold out. So currently, they are taking pre-orders to come later in the month. The campaign so far is being very tight-lipped on whether there are discussions about potential events they could do with Taylor Swift herself. Boris.
Something to keep an eye on. MJ Lee, thanks so much for that. Let's turn now to CNN national correspondent Kristen Holmes covering the Trump campaign. So, Kristen, why is former President Trump casting doubt on the potential for a second debate?
Well, Boris, quickly, I just want to mention something that MJ just said. This idea that Taylor Swift would campaign potentially or go to an event with Kamala Harris, that is something that would really get under Donald Trump's skin. I just want to remind everyone that despite the fact that he went on TV today and said that he didn't think he would get Taylor Swift's endorsement, he wasn't a big fan of hers anyway, it was just last month that he was posting AI pictures of Taylor Swift essentially pretending that she had endorsed him, saying, Taylor, I accept, with these AI photos of her and of other women wearing Swifties for Trump shirts. So that is something that would really irk Donald Trump, regardless of how many times he says he doesn't care what Taylor Swift does. Now, in terms of the debate, Donald Trump says last night was one of his greatest debate appearances ever. However, after months or weeks of saying that he wanted a second debate after this one with Kamala Harris, he now appears to be backing away from that idea. Here's what he said this morning.
When a fighter loses, he says, I want a rematch. I want a rematch. They always, the losing person, the fighter, the debater, they always ask for a rematch. I won the debate. I don't know that I want to do another debate.
Right.
Now, I don't know anything about fighting, but I do know that generally speaking, if a campaign comes out immediately after a debate and says, we want to do another one, that generally means that they thought that they did well. If a campaign comes out and sends their own candidate into the spin room, that generally isn't that good for that side. Now, regardless, I've spoken to a number of Republican allies of Donald Trump's who say they were disappointed in his performance last night. They don't think it's going to move the needle at all, but they did believe, after talking to him in the lead up to this debate, that he would stick to the issues, that he had been warned enough times that Kamala Harris was going to try to get under his skin, that she was going to try to goad him with specific questions or specific responses. And he
Hey, Kristen,
fell
we're
right
going to
into
interrupt you
that
really
trap.
quick because the former president is speaking in Shanksville, Pennsylvania right now. Let's listen in.
And well, we're looking at it, but you know, when you win, you don't really necessarily have to do it a second time. So we'll see. But I thought we had a great debate last night. Thank you very much.
What would need to change for you to agree to a second debate? Would you want different rules? Would you want a different format?
Well, you know, when you don't win, it's like a fighter. When a fighter has a bad fight, gets knocked out, or loses the fight, the first thing he says is, "We want a rematch." So we won the debate according to every poll, every single poll. I think that are we going to do a rematch? I just don't know. But we'll think about it.
Would you still do the one on NBC on September 25th? You proposed that. Are you still committed to that?
I would do NBC. I'd do Fox too. I'd do Fox too. But right now we have to determine whether or not we even want to do it. We had a great night last night. And you see by the poll numbers, it was really fantastic. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you, press. Back to the band. Thank you, press.
That was former President Donald Trump at in Shanksville, Pennsylvania, for the 23rd anniversary of the September 11th attacks, United Flight 93, which went down over Shanksville. The former president being asked by reporters about the potential for him to do another debate with Vice President Kamala Harris. The former president saying, "We'll think about it." He repeated the idea that he won last night. He said, "We had a great night." He said the polling shows that. That's not what CNN's polling reflects, which gave the edge to the vice president. He did say that when you win, you don't have to do it a second time, comparing himself to a prize fighter and the losing side in a boxing match, saying that they want a rematch. He says that he may not need one. He would do NBC or Fox, according to him, for a debate. Of course, we're going to keep an eye on the former president's remarks and get the latest from his campaign as he speaks to the press. Brianna?
All right, Boris, thank you so much. Former President Trump and his supporters are slamming ABC News after last night's debate. They are calling out the network after its moderators fact-checked the former president in real time. Trump made at least 33 false claims, according to CNN's count, and this morning he called the debate a rigged process and baselessly suggested that Harris cheated.
They had a rigged show with somebody that maybe even had the answers. I mean, I watched her talk, and I said, you know, she seems awfully familiar with the questions.
CNN media correspondent Hadass Gold is with us now. Hadass, how often did ABC step in last night?
Yeah, Brianna, fact-checking is always such a thorny issue for debate moderators. That's dogged them for years. Now, ABC, before the debate, never committed one way or another whether they were going to fact-check. But clearly, they had made a conscious decision that they were going to step in at certain times. But they stepped in very sort of quick and crisp moments. There were two very clear, very obvious fact-checks. Let's get to the first one. This was about 20 minutes into the debate, and this was by Lindsey Davis on the subject of abortion.
And you can look at the governor of West Virginia. But the governor before, he said the baby will be born and we will decide what to do with the baby. In other words, we'll execute the baby.
There is no state in this country where it is legal to kill a baby after it's born.
Now, the second fact check was about the whole thing of people eating pets in Ohio. I never thought I'd have people eating pets in Ohio on my 2024 debate bingo card, but here we are. But there were other more indirect fact checks, which I think was a very interesting and smart way for the moderators to do a fact check, where they don't go right to the candidate and say, actually, this is not true. David Muir, for example, when Trump refused to say that he had lost the 2020 election, then turned to Vice President Harris and said, okay, he still believes he did not lose the election that was won, actually, by President Biden and yourself. But as you noted, Trump's allies, Trump himself, the right-wing media, they are howling over this. Some have even gone so far as suggesting ABC should somehow be criminally charged or should have something happen to it just for fact-checking, you know, saying what is true and what is not in a debate stage. And they're saying that they should have also been fact-checking Harris. And sure, as we noted, Harris did have at least one instance where they could have potentially fact-checked. But, you know, ABC was just going for the most obvious, most extreme examples of outright mistruths, and that just happened to be said by Donald Trump. Brianna.